There's nuances to life, especially relationships. But at its core, I think that most of what we want is to be seen and heard. Those ideas are pretty simple, but they're pretty big ideas. It doesn't mean that you want someone to look at you or even hear what you have to say, but instead to take you in totality, or as much as someone can take you in totality. Like you meet someone on the street, well, they're going to see the side of the milk carton that you're putting forward, or the side of your milk carton, which is your personality. You have many different sides. They may get the energy that they put forward, and your personality will match whatever that is. But whenever we want to be seen and heard, especially inside of a romantic relationship, not only do we want our partner to listen to us, but we want others to know that this person listens to us, that this person sees us, and we want others to know that we see them and we listen to them. And in this state, it serves as a safety mechanism that pushes away people who may interfere with your relationship. When others know that this is your person, they will treat them differently. And in that differently, in that concept, it's important because they may choose not to pursue your significant other, knowing that you are one. And in relationships, that feeling of when others know that you are one, it's a beautiful, soothing, and peaceful experience, especially when you're able to walk up to your special someone and give them love for the sake of love. Simply letting them know, I see you, I love you, and I want to make sure that you're safe. And you don't have to push your way into their environment as they're socializing with someone else. It just feels good to love on the people that you love, or to give goodness to the people that you adore, and letting others know that this is my person. So please be good to them. And then you stroll away and you do your own thing. I think it's really important inside of relationships that people do still have their own identity. And sometimes you lose it, but it's kind of a delicate balance between having your own identity as well as having your combined identity, because you are a team. You want really to have an ally that fights against the adversary throughout life. You want someone who can hold your hand when you're crossing the stream so you don't fall and scrape your knee. You want that help. It doesn't matter who you are. We all want someone by our side when we need help, and that help can manifest in an array of ways. It could be, I need to speak what my feelings are, and I need you to listen and not judge me. Sometimes in relationships, we find ourselves in a situation where we just need to speak and we need someone to hold space with us. Unfortunately, most of us, whenever we have wanted that in the past, a space is created, but it's not being held by the other person. They aren't creating a container for us to give what we want to give. And at the end of it, we're interrogated, or we're in a situation where our partner is attempting to fix us. But we just want them to listen so we can get out all that muck and mud from our inside parts, so we're no longer sticking to ourselves, and we can no longer, because when we're in these spaces where we're so gummed up, our gears simply don't move, and we can't progress forward in life or give the energy we want to give to the people that we love and we adore. And so when we hold space, when we have someone who holds space for us, we can unload without judgment, we can be heard, and the space is as it is. It doesn't always have to mean anything. Sometimes it does. But when someone holds that space for us, it lets us cleanse the palate. And then at that moment, we can take a breath and actually breathe. Unfortunately, most people don't know how to hold space because they always have something to say. they want to help you. And so whenever you're presenting a problem, their mind is scanning and churning, and it's twisting, and it's going down all these different avenues. What can I say? What's the perfect thing to say? What can I do to make the person that I adore relax and feel comfortable and safe? When in all reality, in the moment of creating space, simply by doing nothing other than giving that person your undivided attention, giving them the totality of your heart and mind without judgment and without the desire to fix or correct or repair, that in of itself is enough to allow them to replenish and clean all their gears. And it's a beautiful experience. But to get there, it requires a lot of personal discipline, and it means that whenever we're with someone, we need to really look inside of ourselves and look at our own gears and understand our own proclivities. And when we want to say something when we're holding space, we need to refrain. If we want to actually say something, we need to be like, can I open this door? Can I open this door so that I can speak? Because holding space is a gift. It is a space where someone can be seen and heard without judgment, without a toolbox sitting next to them. They know that you're not going to try to perform surgery on them after they've exposed their deepest and most vulnerable parts. Because if you do, if you then try to dissect them, then and then stitch them up, then they won't want to do it again, and they're not going to feel safe with you, because they know that everyone else who's done that, it has hurt them. So I think in the concept of holding space, we need to truly, there are moments whenever we sense that it's time to hold space and there's not a request, and you just give it. And then there's other times when someone may come to you and say, I need you to hold space for me. And if they don't know the term of holding space, then they may request it in another way. It might come out as, I really just need someone to hear me. I need someone to be with me. I need someone to just, I want to exist with you. And I think that when we do that, it really opens up some great doors for us to bond and to relax and to release in the most meaningful of ways. Possessing the ability to hold space while in a relationship is essential, especially if you want true allies. If you want someone who you know will always have your back, then both of you need to develop the self-discipline in order to hold space for one another. And I believe that when two people have that ability, it prevents outside influences from poking into the relationship and causing instability. There's two real sources of outside instability whenever it comes to relationship. And I think that it can be broken up into one category being your friends and family, and then a second category being orbiters. And in this one, we're going to specifically talk more about orbiters. And an orbiter is someone, it usually occurs with women and the guys who desire her. And these are the guys who would love to either experience coitus with the woman or wants to have a relationship with her. And so they give and give and give, and she may never really reciprocate any kind of girlfriend energy, but she still hangs around them, and they will do whatever they can in order to win her over. In essence, when they spend time with each other, it's like a series of first dates over and over and over. He'll get access to some of her vulnerable zones whenever she begins to talk about the relationship. But one of the easy ways to identify whether or not a man is an orbiter's life of your woman is that he will seize every opportunity to poorly represent you or the man. And he will say things like, if I were with you, I would never treat you that way. And he would build himself up and try to show how much better he is. And so whenever she's complaining, like she's venting about some of the hardships that she's facing in the relationship, that orbiter is always going to try and seize the moment and crush the relationship. And the reason the orbiter does this is that it's a lot of these individuals, they want the person, but they don't want the person in a mutually beneficial way. It's because they've become obsessed with the idea of having this person in their life, and instead of moving forward to find someone who could actually fulfill their needs, they're stuck, and they can't see beyond them. And this leads them to become obsessive, and they will dismantle your relationship. So if your partner has orbiters, and it can happen with guys too, it's just not as often, but if your partner has an orbiter in their life, if your partner doesn't feel like you can hold space with them and create an environment where they can share their vulnerabilities, then they will go to this orbiter and express themselves. And if this occurs, you're opening doorways for people who aren't in the relationship to sabotage it. When in reality, I think that the only two people who should be sabotaging a relationship or have the ability to do so are the people who are in the relationship, not other people talking about it. And I think that situation can be prevented if she knows that she can go to you and talk to you, and you can hold space for her so that she can process out these feelings without you having to perform some kind of psychic surgery on her heart and mind. And the same thing applies to men, which is he needs her to listen to him without trying to question him or judge him. There's a lot of things that guys run into whenever they're in a relationship with a woman when it comes time to him to share his feelings. And what he may feel is he says that something is hurting her, or something is hurting him, and she may say something, well, what did you do to cause it? What caused this? What did this? And he might do that too. And those questions are counterproductive. They make you not want to share. It shuts things down. In the course of sharing our deep emotional states and our feelings, we want to feel safe. Everyone wants to feel safe. And if you know that you will be criticized or analyzed or questioned about the validity of whether or not your feelings were okay to feel, and maybe you're in the wrong in some capacity, in these moments, you won't go to that person for emotional support anymore because you know that it's leading nowhere. And so if you don't have that space, you will find someone who will offer it to you. And that's damaging to the relationship. There is a space for you to go to your friends. But if you're not getting that core need of being able to talk to someone without walking on eggshells, then there is no real true safety in that relationship. So my strongest piece of advice with that one is develop some skills to hold space with your significant other, and that will help you mitigate the damage that orbiters cause. Now, it's in my opinion that I think that both partners really need to be removing the orbiters from their lives anyways. Because if you are committed to a relationship, you don't need people around you who want to have a romantic relationship with you. You need people around you who will respect the integrity of your relationship. Friends who are actual friends, who instead of tearing your relationship apart for self-serving gain or simply the pleasure of creating trouble, are looking for ways to help you keep your relationship alive. People who want to see you happy. Because if you've selected this person, this is how I operate whenever I'm working with friends or working with someone who wants some kind of relationship advice, is I know that everyone else around them is stuck inside of the muck and mud of bitterness and anger and an entitlement. And so if you are my friend, and if I actually want to help you, in which I do if I'm talking about relationships, whether you're a stranger or a friend, I want you to preserve that relationship because you chose them. And ultimately, if you want to end the relationship, you need to end it on your own terms, not because of some advice that I gave you. So I try to focus on, if you're hurting, well, I'm going to create a space for you. I'll open that doorway up. You could walk into that environment. I will listen to you, hear what you have to say. And then we can just let it sit there. If you want more, if you want insight or experience, and you can request it of me, or I might say, hey, I can offer you what I think, but I don't have to give it to you. And if you take it, then I can break it down a little bit further. But I'm always trying to take it from the position of, how can I make your relationship work? And one of the questions I like asking is, what do you love about your partner? What drew you into them in the first place? What do you cherish about them? And I think these questions are really important, especially whenever you're hurting and you're just burning off so much steam. Because in reality, and we dump a lot of our negative emotions on the people that we adore and love most. And that's just kind of a proximity thing. So they will get a lot more, we will see them in a far more negative light than we actually do whenever we're hurting, because we don't have a place to put those emotions. And if they can't hold space with us, then it will magnify it, because we really like, when it comes to emotions and shedding off that bad energy, we want to give it to the person we want to give it to. And if they aren't willing to catch it, we get more frustrated, because how love works is we want to give ourselves to them, both good and bad. We want them to hold us and look at us and hear us and love on us until we feel better again. And if we don't have that and they won't give it to us, it reaches deep into our heart, and it shakes up our loneliness creature. And we're like, I feel so alone, even though I'm with someone that I love. I love them so much. Why can't they give this to me? I need this from them. I'm directly communicating with them. I need this from you. And if they can't give it, it gets frustrating and it's heartbreaking. And it makes you question the value of the relationship and the value of the bond. Because relationships aren't just sex, and they're not just hanging out with each other. They're not just about exploring your hobbies or having shared interests. It's truly about finding someone to the deepest depths of your core that you're compatible with, that they, mixed with your ingredients, create the perfect cocktail for the both of you. And so I talk a lot about having that level, feeling complete, finding someone who completes you. And it's not having the perfect fit. Instead, it's in life we have, in a relationship, there's a container, and that container is 16 ounces of fluid. And life requires 32 ounces to really tackle it. But the container could only be 16 ounces. So we look for someone who offers the ounces that are going to complement our ounces, so we can have a delicious cocktail to enjoy as we move through life. And we're going to have the nutrients inside of that beverage that will fuel us so we can continue to move forward and face the adversary and make the most of our moments. And in order for us to really know if they have those components, we have to hold space with them. We have to have deep conversations. We have to dive into one another and feel each other's heart spaces and understand, are we actually compatible on a fundamental level? And once you discover that you are, then there's all these rough spots that we need to iron out. And just because someone can't hold space with you, it doesn't mean that they will never be able to hold space with you, because the holding space idea is a skill. It's not something that you're typically born with. You have to develop it. It's a matter of saying, I want to say something, but it's not the right time to say it, and then refraining until it's requested. And when you have this, as I said before, when you have this sacred space, you don't have to turn to other people outside of the relationship. You can get those core needs from your lover. And when you're getting those core needs from your lover, whenever they're out and about and they're socializing with men and women, you know that they feel heard and they feel seen. And so whenever you come up to them It gives you a greater chance to shower them with love without it disrupting the flow of their interactions with others. It lets them know that if you say, I want you to have your own friends, I want you to have a life outside of our life, they can believe you, that they know that you're actually listening to what it is that they want. And when that's mutual, when you both know that, then you can have that life that you actually want, and you can feel safe. There are a lot of components to a relationship, and I find that in the modern era, there seems to be a lot of situational ships or situationships, whatever you want to call them. And there's a lot of relationships where you're dating or you're seeing each other or you're talking, but ultimately all these words mean nothing because there's no real consensus about what any of this means. But we do know that it means something when we are a boyfriend-girlfriend situation, and we do know that it means something if you're husband and wife. The rest of them, they just lead to a lot of emotional confusion and hardship. And I think a lot of the hardship that we face in the modern coupling is that no one knows where they stand. I wrote something yesterday, and it was about how the 1980s, there was all this quicksand in all the movies, and it made us think that we would encounter a lot more quicksand when we became an adult. But I made kind of an off joke about it, being that in reality, it did prepare us for what we would be facing in our relationships. And I think that most relationships that we have, it is like standing on quicksand because we don't have stable footing. We don't know what the relationship is or how someone actually feels about us. And because of this, it creates a mess in the bonding process. Now, I think that the way of modern dating is garbage. And it's garbage because built into it is this pathological drive to be independent while attempting to be coupled with someone else. And it doesn't work that way. Because when you're in a relationship with someone, you both need to need each other and you both need to be needed. And at the point that you are no longer needed or you don't feel like you have a value to the relationship, you're miserable. And you don't know where you stand. So you need a role. And whatever that is to your relationship, that's what it is to your relationship. But if you aren't contributing something of significance, and if you don't feel like you're contributing something of significance, then you feel insignificant. And titles in a relationship are essential because they allow us to know that we are significant, that we are wanted, that we are adored, that we are something. Because if the relationship doesn't have an actual designation that symbolically and spiritually encapsulates what it is, we don't know. And there is nothing, I think, in relationships that's more frustrating than not knowing where you stand, especially when you adore someone, when you want a relationship with them. Orbiters kind of fall into this role of not knowing where they stand because they want to be with someone. They're getting some of the girlfriend or boyfriend energy. It feels like a series of first dates, but they're first dates without any kind of physical intimacy. And the person that the orbiter is connected to, that they're revolving around, they may say they don't want to be in a relationship with them, but a lot of their energy indicates otherwise. They're accepting gifts. They're receiving from this person. They're receiving the energy. And especially for men want to provide and women want to receive. And it's vice versa. So it's like the need of the man is for her to receive, and the need for the woman is for him to provide. Unfortunately, society has corrupted that as well. society has tricked a lot of women into thinking that that provide component means money, that he has to make all this money. But if you look at guys who make a crap ton of money, they still have a difficult time with women because they don't understand what provide actually means. And providing means it could be making her laugh. It could be teaching her something. It could be sharing your experiences and stories. It's something that stimulates her intellectually and and emotionally and spiritually. If he doesn't have that and all he has is money, then money really does create opportunities, but it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a spirit to it. And there's no real, it can create situations that are great and are adventuresome, but there's really no nourishment to it. So the money can create the house. It can create it can keep her fed. It can make her physically comfortable, but there are additional layers to the providing that he has to give. And if he doesn't give it, then that relationship is empty. And the man needs her to receive him. And a lot of times, this is another situation where society has corrupted that as well. And everyone thinks, well, what men need from women is sex. And sex is only a small component of that. He needs her to take his knowledge and receive it. He wants her to have the desire to learn from him, to listen to his jokes, to listen to his stories. He needs her to accept him all the way into her heart. And when she does that, it gives him the Scooby snacks that he needs to eat. And whenever she receives it from the man that she wants to receive it from, then it feeds her the Scooby snacks that she needs to eat. So whenever these orbiters are spending time with these women, these men or women, and they're moving around them and they're giving to them, it feels like it's going somewhere. And that's, in a sense, could be traumatic, because you're like, well, I'm giving it, and one day she's going to change her mind and she's going to fall in love with me. I just got to be at the right moment at the right time and keep on give. And it doesn't work that way. And so he sets himself up for disaster. But where he sits is in this state of confusion. He doesn't know where he stands. Even though she may say to him, I don't want to date you, her actions indicate otherwise. And so he lingers. And you could say, well, why wouldn't she accept it if he's willing to give it? But that comes down to integrity. If you know that someone, it's like, if you know someone will never be able to, they're never going to have you. So why are you leading them on? It doesn't matter if they're an adult. It doesn't matter if they're a grown-ass man and they want to give you stuff. You should have the integrity to say, no, I'm not going to accept this anymore. We are friends. Because your actions, if you're doing it differently, if you're accepting these gifts, you're communicating to him that you want a romantic relationship, or you're stringing him along. And you can accept gifts from a man, but the relationship has to be platonic, and there has to be an understanding. There's rules of engagement in relationships between men and women, especially if you're in a relationship with a man. So that orbiter lives in a like, that guy is miserable, or that girl is miserable, because they think it's going somewhere and they're getting just enough energy to think that it might be somewhere. But they hear you say it's not going anywhere, but then they feel it's going somewhere, and it's destructive. Another level to that, which is I like to call placeholders. And a placeholder is similar to an orbiter, but different in some substantial ways. An orbiter would love to be a placeholder until they became a placeholder. And a placeholder is someone who is temporary, or they feel temporary. They feel like it is a dynamic that's not going anywhere. But they, at the same time, they feel like it's going somewhere. Now, the The fundamental difference between an orbiter and a placeholder is that the placeholder is going to get the sexual intimacy and they're going to get the emotional intimacy. They're going to talk on the phone all the time. And it's going to give, between a man and a woman, the woman, if she were a placeholder, she's going to get all of that masculine boyfriend energy. And if the man is a placeholder, he's going to get all that feminine girlfriend energy. But it doesn't have a title, and it doesn't have form. It doesn't have structure. And he wants to give his masculine energy and adoration to her. And she, if she is the placeholder, she wants to give her adoration, her respect, and her feminine energy to him. But since it doesn't have a title, they don't know what it is. And it's emotionally confusing. And it's like existing on quicksand because your emotions are enveloping you and they're suffocating you because it feels like it should be going somewhere, but it's not. This manifests, I think, in different ways between men and women. I think the pain is different. They're similar, but they're different. Now, I'm sure you've heard this, and there's a lot of like crap on the internet that really talks about the gatekeeper concept, and a lot of people who talk about it are really vile, and they really don't. They say things too harshly, and as a consequence, you lose really the significance of what it means. And in generalities, it's saying that women are the gatekeepers of sex and that men are the gatekeepers of relationships and commitment. So whenever a woman is a placeholder, she's giving away the sex, but he's never giving her the title of him being her boyfriend. And with him, and in that one, it's confusing because you want more, but he's not giving you more, and you don't know why. And you eventually start feeling like you're wasting your time, and you can't wait any longer. In this one here, I think that what you got to do is, really, I think it comes down to what titles matter to you, and what do those titles mean to you. So if you're like, as you're quote unquote dating, and dating doesn't mean that you're boyfriend and girlfriend. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. But that needs to be defined. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to him? And express what titles mean to you and why they're important and what you need if you want to continue this relationship. And if he doesn't want it, what you describe as what you want, then it's not going to go any further because he doesn't want it. Now, for a man, when he's a placeholder, it's really confusing because she is clearly the gateway. You know, she has that lock and key on the gateway to sex, and he's getting the sex, but he's not getting, he wants to move the relationship forward, but he's had that taken away from him when everything lines up where it's like, yeah, this should be what it is. And then so then he's like, okay, well, she doesn't want it. Sometimes in these situations, he'll start pulling away. And when he pulls away, her feelings maybe get hurt, or she get angry, or, and it's like, why are you pulling away? It's like, well, he's pulling away because he doesn't want to be locked into a woman who is going to control all the domains. You know, we're supposed to share in the control of the domains. And if all the domains are all in your hands, then he feels emasculated. In a sense, it's like holding him with a relationship. You're withholding everything. And so, you know, he somehow has to be committed to you, but you're not going to be committed to him. And he can't express his adoration for you in the ways that he would like to, because it requires that title to do it. And if the title's not there, then he doesn't know where he stands. And this is miserable. So either way, between men and women as a placeholder, it's one of the worst places to be in any kind of relationship. And it's miserable on so many fronts because it makes you feel like you don't matter. It makes you feel like it's not going anywhere. It makes you feel like you're not seen or you're not heard and that you don't have value. Because it makes you ask, why? Why isn't it moving forward? What about me is making it where it's not moving forward? And if there is something about me, tell me what it is so I can make an assessment and decide if I want to stay in this state. One of the reasons that people put others, you kind of enter that placeholder spot, and whether it is or is not, sometimes that's one of the hardships of being a placeholder, or thinking that you are, is that you don't know if you actually are. There's a chance that you could just be like, there's a moment that just has to pass for someone to get through something, and then you'll be there. But you don't know if that's the case because you're looking around you and everything indicates that it's going somewhere and not going somewhere all at the same time, and you don't know what to do. And emotions are crazy. They're like little animals, and they're jumping all over the place. And we have to respect them, and we have to love on them. So if we sense that one of our emotional creatures are being abused, we have to intervene. What's happening? There's a phenomena that occurs, and I like to call it the soul grinder of the soul. And it can be initiated, or it will just happen on its own. And a lot of times, if you are in that placeholder situation, it will kick in naturally. And what it does is it gives someone every opportunity to commit, every opportunity to do the right thing or to treat you good. And the mechanism makes it so that you get hurt a lot. And you get hurt over and over until each time that hurt lessens and lessens, and the intensity of your adoration, love, and respect eventually erodes into nothing. And when it reaches that point, you can step away and you're good. It's one of the faster methods of getting over heartbreak, is you let that person hurt you until they can't hurt you anymore. And when I say hurt, I mean emotionally, not physically. If something's hurting you physically, you need to get the fuck away from them. But emotionally, it's like you're choosing to let them hurt you because you know they're going to hurt you. And the more that they hurt you, the more callous you become towards them, until eventually you're like, why am I here? I don't want to be around you. You don't make me feel special. You don't make me feel good. You don't make me feel desired or seen or heard. I'm not getting the things that I need from you. And even though you might be doing all this other stuff, there are some very specific details that we need from someone. And if we don't get that need from someone, it hurts us to a very deep level. Sometimes we feel like a placeholder when the person that we are attempting to move into a relationship with is in a phase of transition or in a state of healing. And they will be reluctant to enter a relationship for various reasons. Sometimes the reason they'll give is because they don't want you to be a rebound. I think the concept of rebounds is stupid. Because in all reality, we are always in a rebound. Always. Because there will be some kind of emotional damage, and there will be baggage with everyone that you are intimate with. So the idea that you don't want to date this person because you're afraid of it being a rebound relationship is immature and asinine. If you don't want to be with them, just say, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. Just be more like, dive into yourself and ask yourself why. Why don't you actually want it? And if you feel like you need to give a reason, don't lie to them and don't lie to yourself, because every relationship is a rebound after the first. The other reason that it can occur is because someone is healing. They're in a state of healing. And I think this is another bullshit answer. By and large, I think it is a bullshit answer. And the reason is because there is no point in your life when you are not healing. We are in a constant state of emotional healing. There is so much crap that we have endured in life that there's something that we're healing from. And it might not be like the prior relationship. It could be some kind of crazy childhood trauma. It could be some bullshit that you dealt with in work. It could be a failed opportunity in business or in life. It could be anything, but you were constantly in a state of healing. So if you're going to limit yourself because you're like, I'm healing, I'm healing. I can't enter this relationship. I think you should really dive a little deeper into what your answer is and if you're going to give an answer, give the honest one and give the deepest, most honest one if you're going to give one. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to tell anyone why you don't want to be with them. That's your choice. You could just say, I don't want to be in a relationship. Okay, well, that's good. But if you're going to say that, be honest with yourself with that, and don't put yourself in situations they're going to invite more people into that space. Don't invite people into your sacred spaces that would indicate to them that you want to couple. And a lot of that has to do with who you're spending time with and asking the right questions. Questions are important. And communicate to people, like this is something I think is really important, is communicate what you actually want. Because let's say you got, as a guy, you got a girl who says, do you want to have kids? You don't want to have kids? Say you don't want to have kids. If you're talking to a guy and you ask him if he wants to get married again, he says no, and you want to get married, well, that's a no-go. You know that from the beginning. So just cut it off and move forward. If you say, if you're a guy and you talk to a woman and she says, I don't want a relationship, and you want a relationship, it's a no-go. It's going nowhere. So move on. But don't send mixed signals. Don't give someone boyfriend or girlfriend energy when you have no intention for it to go down that path. It's confusing as shit, and it hurts people. And even though everyone else in the world are adults, we still have a child heart, and we need to do our best to protect the sanctity of other people's heart fields. Just be honest with yourself. Maybe you're not ready right now. But don't say it because you're healing. We're always healing. We're always growing. And there's this other component to healing, which is I think a lot of times, especially in the modern world, there's only so much healing you can do on your own because you are always alone. Almost everyone is always alone. Even when they're surrounded by people, they're still alone because the rarity of meaningful and honest and genuine conversations is so rare that most times when you talk to someone, the conversation is of no consequence. You're still alone. You're still alone with them. And so you're being forced to heal the trauma of your life by yourself. I think a lot of the healing that we need to do is with someone else, especially in a world that pushes us to be pathologically independent, one that tells us that we can do anything and everything on our own. But the reality here is you cannot. You're a fool if you think that you can take on this life by yourself. An absolute fool. We were designed to have a partner. We were designed to have a community. And that's why we're so miserable. Society is immeasurably miserable. And I think it's wrapped into a lot of the aspects being we no longer honor titles. And we think that we can navigate life by having this universal word to be like, it is what it is. We're just having fun. We're just having fun. Playing around, fucking around, all this stuff. It's got to have a title. It's got to have something to say what it is. Even if it's nothing. The situational ship, that has a name. And knowing what it is important. So that people can know where they stand. Where's a relationship going? Is it not going anywhere? They need to know this. And if they don't know this, they're being set up for disaster. And that's absolutely miserable. And just because you are not their keeper, just because they're like, let's say it's going nowhere. It doesn't matter if you know them or you love them or you have adoration towards them or any of this other stuff. It's still really important that you even look out for strangers. It doesn't mean that you need to sacrifice for them, but it means that looking out for others in a way that helps them live their best life, living with love, giving goodness for the sake of goodness. Because there's already too much horror in the world. Already way too much horror. So just be fair to people. Life isn't fair. I say this all the time. Life isn't fair. But we should do our best to keep relationships fair. So do your best to articulate what something is, so someone knows what it is, so they're not missing opportunities to find that one person, that one special person who's going to spark their heart. Especially if they think that's you. If they think you are the one who's going to release them from the trappings of their perpetual loneliness, because they feel that your heart is a golden nimbus glow that makes their soul feel whole and welcome and loved. But if they don't have that, if they don't know what it is, then all that beauty that they feel in regards to you will burn them. It will burn them and hurt them. So titles are important. We all want to know where we stand. That's why I think it's wise to tell people the best that you can what it is that your relationship is, where it is going. Are you platonic? Are you friends with benefits? Are you a situationship? Are you a girlfriend, boyfriend? And then honoring what those make the what you say match your actions. Something I hear a lot from women is one of the biggest complaints that they say is consistency. Their man is not consistent. Who they were in the beginning is not who they are now. Or they say that they say that could be available for this and now they're not available, or they set a pattern for this. And then they broke it. And I think that these complaints are fair. And I think that what causes this is that we're just not honest with ourselves. And we change things on other people quickly because we gave them more than we ordinarily would, because we didn't have the discipline to hold true to what our personal standards are. And in this light, I made a post recently where I was talking about one of the major reasons why most relationships fail, and that's because men don't know how to say no. And of course, I got a shit ton of anger from that, because one of the assumptions is I was talking about promiscuity, and the second one was that I was saying that I was hating on men, and I wasn't hating on men. Instead, I'm pointing out a very specific detail. And that specific detail is that in the relationship, he needs to know how to say no to himself and to say no to her. If she wants more of his time than what he would be able to offer to her, then he needs to say, no, I can't do this. I don't want to set our relationship up for disaster. Because if he doesn't know how to say no to himself or how to say no to her, he will become inconsistent. He will appear to be unreliable, and that the relationship loses the stable footing that it needs. Because in a relationship, we need time with each other, and that time needs to be enough so we feel safe and secure, that we're getting the replenishment and the rejuvenation that we need. And when it's not there, when things suddenly change, we think that there's a problem. But the problem is probably a source that began from the very beginning. So when I talk to men, I try to say, the time that you're giving her, make sure it's a time that you can always give her. And if it is something that will change, tell her. Say, hey, look, I want to hang out with you on Saturday, and I want to hang out with you as many days as I can because I really like you. I'm setting time aside that I ordinarily would not be able to set aside for you. But if we become something, if this goes somewhere, and I hope that it does, then I have things that I like to go to. I like to spend time with, my friend Bobby, or I go and I play this game on Sunday, or I have these club meetings that I go to. And some of these things you might be able to come to, but I still need my time. I need time to myself so that I can replenish and give you all that golden, glowy goodness that's inside of my heart whenever we spend time together, so that I can be me and I can give you the stories and the lessons and the adventures that I experience, so that I can feed them to you, so that you have something to receive. And that way we're not just always the same when we have nothing to share. I need to replenish. And if it exists in the beginning, then it creates safety later. And that's all about communicating, being able to say no. The no thing goes a lot deeper than that even. Because if your man can't say no to you, then he can't say no to anyone. And that's dangerous. And at a later time, I'll dive a little bit deeper into that one because it's more nuanced than what the subject is here today. So in relationships, I think the goal is to protect its sanctity. It's to provide a space for our lover to feel safe, for us to be good to other people for the sake of being good to them and being honest with ourselves and with others, to dive deeply into who we are and who others are, to see whether or not we're actually compatible, to actually offer to hold space for our significant other, and to use our bond and our ability to create safe spaces so that others don't enter our relationships and dismantle them. We need to know how to say no, both men and women, so you can set clear and effective boundaries. Those boundaries are essential. But at the same time, whenever we're enforcing those boundaries, we need to be enforcing them with kindness. To understand that there is no way that they could have known our boundaries, because there's a lot of our own boundaries that we don't even know. We need to empathize with each other. Imagine what it's like to be that other person. And we need to be responsible with each other. Relationships may seem like a lot of work, and they are work, but they're work that is worth it. If they were easy, just like anything else in life, they wouldn't be meaningful. The energy and the adoration from someone significant requires investment. We need to invest in each other. We need to love on each other. We need to share our stories with each other, spend time with each other, discover how to make the most of our moments, and cherish one another in the most beautiful ways. To explore even the dark parts and the sweet and the soft and the hard and the dark and the beautiful parts of each other's spirit and soul. Yes, it may be challenging. But when you do the work, when you invest in someone else and you're willing to open up your chest and show off your heart to the deepest parts of your soul, when you're willing to be absolutely vulnerable, it leads to the greatest peace and ease, because you're able to live in harmony with someone special. Thank you for listening to my monologue today, and I hope that until the next time we speak, you're able to make the most of your moments and cherish your seconds with someone special.